Okay, so the next topic is a continuous statement. And remember, just now I gave you an example that we have a total of 10 rounds, and then on the round 5, if we have a break, and then the rest 5 iterations will just be ignored, and because we are stopping the whole iteration. Okay, and well, for the continue, well, that is another statement we can use in the body of a iteration. Well, the way that the continue works is it will skip the current iteration. However, it will resume in the rest of the iterations. Okay, so let's continue with this example. Say we have a definite loop which will run for 10 rounds. And then in round 5, we have a continue instead of a break. This means the current round, the round 5, will be skipped. And after that, we are going to resume at round 6, and then we are going to continue in the rest of the rounds. So in this way, let's assume that the continue only got triggered once in round 5, and then part of the round 5 after the continue will be skipped. However, the rest of the iterations will still be there. Okay, that's the difference between the continue and the break. Because for the break, that is an exit of the iteration. However, for the continue, it only skips the rest of the current round. However, we are going to resume in the next round. Okay, so for the syntax, there's really not so much special to talk about, and usually similar to the break, we want to put continue inside of a condition, and I'm using while as example. However, for the continue or break, you can use them in both for loops and while loops. Okay, so let's see an example. Well, this is a for loop. I'm using the for loop to visit all the characters one by one in this string. And then the control variable is called letter. So for each letter, I'm going to visit python and then a space, right? And in the body of the for loop, I have I have a if letter equals space. If the letter equals space, I do a continue. That means for the current round, skip the rest of the iteration and then resume in the next round. And then, so this means if the continue is triggered, the rest of the iteration will be skipped, and the rest of this iteration simply means one line, which is to print current letter colon and then the letter, right? So remember, this is the iteration we want to visit all characters one by one, and we visit p printed YTHON all printed. However, when we visit this space, and then letter equals space will be a true. We are going to do a continue, which means the rest of the iteration will be skipped. So we ain't gonna see the line printing a space. So you don't, after the end, you don't really see the current letter is a space. You don't see that because the space has been skipped. Okay, so this is the first example. And well, here is another example, but before we do that, let's see this example without using a continuous statement. Okay, we are visiting all the numbers from 0 to 10. And if this number mod 2 is not a 0, this means that is a odd number, right? So if it's an odd number, we print that, and then otherwise we don't do anything. So we are only grabbing the odd numbers because there's not an else. Excuse me, there's not an else here. So we are only grabbing the odd numbers, and then we print the odd numbers, and if this number is evenly divisible by 3, we print this number is divisible by 3, and otherwise we print this number is not divisible by 3. And then we increase the count by 1. Okay, so the process is we want to visit all the odd numbers between 0 to 10. After we have found an odd number, we check that and we tell whether this number is evenly divisible by 3 or not. Okay, and for this version of the code, I'm not using the continue. And here is one thing I want to show you. You see, for the if count most 3 equals 0 colon, well, I didn't hit an enter here, and I put one line right after the colon. Well, if you only have one line of code and that line of code is short enough, well, in Python, it's allowed that you put the body of the if right after the colon. And for the else, the same thing. Well, for the branch of the else, if there's only one line of code, you can put it right after the colon. That is fine. Well, do you want to do that or not? Well, sometimes if the code is short enough, that's okay. But if the code is long, and by putting the if and colon, the body together into one line makes the code hard to read, hard to understand, probably I'm not going to recommend you to do that. Okay? So this is the first version of the code without using the continue. And let's see how we can use the continue here. Well, and from here, well, remember we only check the odd numbers. For the even numbers, what do we do? Actually, we can do this way. If the current number is an even number, and then we just do a continue. And by doing a continue, we mean, well, the rest of this iteration. Well, you're going to skip that, and then we are just going to start, we are just going to resume in the next round. Okay, so well, if the current number is a 1, and then 1 most 2 is not a 0, so we ain't gonna continue, so we are gonna move on. We print the count, which is a 1, and then if 1 most 3 is a 0, we print it's divisible by 3, but it's false, so we are gonna print it's not divisible by 0. So that is the round with count as 1. But next round, when we increase the count again, we have 2, right? And 2 mostly 2 will be a 0, so continue. This means the current round of the iteration is over, but we are going to resume the next round. And the next round, count increased by 1. Again, count will be 3, so count most 2 is 0, is a false. We won't trigger continue, so we want to continue. So, well, this is the trick that we can apply with the continue, because, well, number one, our observation is we only want to touch the odd numbers, and, well, we can apply the trick of the continue to skip all the even numbers. And another thing is, well, if you check this one, well, this is the version without continue, and then we have to do a if here, and if that is a odd number, and then we do the body. What's wrong with that? Well, of course, this version of the code works. However, I do see a longer or deeper code indentation, right? Because we are creating a big if branch with 3 lines of code and also nested if and else inside to deal with the odd numbers. Well, this is bad because when you have more indentations and your code will be harder to read, and then if you hand over your code to somebody else, and then that person will be confused too by reading your code. But if you want to make use of the trick of the continue, and then your code will be much easier to read and much easier to be maintained. Okay? So this is an analogy of doing the continue. Well, if the continue is triggered in the body of this iteration, this means we are going to skip the remaining body of the loop, and then we are going to start over the next iteration, and that is continue. Okay? So well, use less indentation, and that is very important. And when you are doing a super complicated logic, and then you find yourself are using a lot of indentations, say a for loop, and inside you have a if and else, and inside you have another for loop. Well, this logic might be too hard, and even though you are able to write the code, and probably the code will be really hard to be understood by anybody else. Okay, so well, here is another example. If we want to do a for in the range of 7, and if x equals 3 or x equals 6, we want to do a continue, and then and and then we want to do a print x. So if we run this code, and then what will be the values printed by this example? So think about that. Okay, let's work on this together. For the range 7, what are the values inside? We have the range from 0, right? So we start the range from 0, and then do we have 7 included? No, we don't have 7 included. So for the range 7, we really have the values from 0 to 6. 0 included, 6 included, right? And then, well, the rule is if x is a 3 or x is a 6, we want to do a continue. So by saying a continue, we are going to skipping the printing part. So 3 and 6, they are not going to be printed. So 0 to 6 with 3 skipped and 6 skipped. And then what is that? That is D, right? 0 to 6 with 3 skipped here and 6 skipped here. Okay, so that is the part for the continue, and I will see you in the next video.